Welcome to the calm before the storm. Dolphins playing the Steelers tonight. We have some final thoughts and reactions to Week 15 as it pertains to the Dolphins here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. A special thank you to all of you who have helped to make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Today on the show, it is the calm before the storm. There will be no storm tonight, per se, if you will. The Dolphins will be playing in the cold, though, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The current forecast, or the current temperature in Pittsburgh, and I'm excited for Miami to be back home so we don't talk about the cold next week. It's 17 degrees out, feels like 4 right now. The hourly forecast for Pittsburgh, it's going to be like high of 19, 20 degrees today. It's, of course, going to be dark for the game, so it's not going to be 20 degrees. It's going to be cold, right? And for all of the things that we've talked about for narrative-busting opportunities, the Dolphins are going to get exactly that against Pittsburgh. Temperature kickoff, 17 degrees, 6 or 7 mile per hour winds out of the southwest. So 2% chance of precipitation. This is not going to be cold, wet ball territory. This is not going to be a snow game. It's just going to be cold. We've seen the Dolphins stylistically make some changes. Now is the time to show them in a setting against Pittsburgh that's going to have Cam Hayward. Derek Harmon's questionable for the game. Sounds like he's going to go. They won't have TJ Watt, but we talked about on Friday, Nick Herbig going in, still a dangerous pass rusher player. They're going to be without James Pierre at corner. So defensively, you've got a chance to get after Pittsburgh and live up to what you have shown in the past month of the season, right? And some of those wins look a little different now than what they did when you had them. New Orleans has beat the Bucs and the Panthers, the 2 first-place teams in the NFC South, the last 2 weeks, right? So new opportunity, embrace who you are, embrace the cold. Don't be the team that backs down on the conditions. And if you do, well, it's another bullet point on the list. And that's where, like, a portion of today's show for me is going to be focused on what happened across the league in Week 15 and kind of this subplot of playoffs and probabilities. And I frankly don't care. Now, this season for me stopped being about the playoffs a long time ago. And there's a part of me that wants to see, just like the game embodies the same thing that's most important to me as we get ready for an offseason with a general manager change, as everything else. I want to see how the team responds. This happens. How do you respond? It's cold outside. How do you respond? You're down a few scores. How do you respond? And I point to Buffalo that fell behind New England 21-0 in the first half. And the Bills came back and won the game. You know how many rush attempts the Bills had despite losing at one point in that game, 21-0? They had almost 40 rush attempts. And it wasn't Josh Allen running around like a chicken with his head cut off and making a bunch of stuff happen on his own. He did some of that, sure. But it wasn't like he scrambled for 15 times. They stuck with it and they ran the ball. I want to see these adverse situations. How does the team respond? Do you react or do you respond? And for a cold weather game, 17 degrees at kickoff, team can't play in the cold. It's going to be about the same temperature the entire time. Not going to get a whole lot colder than 17 degrees. I'm excited for that. the game and the postseason aspiration, all that. We'll talk about that. But final thoughts for Pittsburgh, them losing James Pierre, kind of a big deal. He's been playing good football for Pittsburgh. Obviously, with TJ Watt, Darnell Washington's cleared concussion protocol. The Steelers put Jaylen Warren on the injury report. He's now questionable with an injury. He's their running back with an illness. The same goes for Larry Borom with the Dolphins. So 2 additions today on the injury report. Larry Borom and Jaylen Warren questionable with illnesses. Warren sounds like he's still positive or optimistic that he's going to go. Darnell Washington being back is a great challenge for your guys on the edge. It's the kind of matchup that makes you a little leery if you put him over top of Chop Robinson, right? You got to protect him with angles in that regard. And what's the trickle down effect for who else is fitting in the front, whether that's a guy that's off the ball or whether that's the guy next to him as your defensive tackle or your stack off ball linebacker or your nickel player that's going to fit inside because you're going to put Chop wider outside. That's a matchup for me to watch. Chop versus the tight ends, in particular, Darnell Washington. Andrus Pete's going to be out. That was confirmed on the injury report on Friday to go along with Broderick Jones, So you're down to third string left tackle. Bradley Chubb, I'm looking at you. It's a big spot for not a particularly mobile quarterback. And if you get your plays, we got to finish them. And that's been a kind of a sore spot all season long. We've had probably a half dozen sacks and an equal amount or more of tackles for loss that we just haven't finished the play in the backfield. This is not the game to come out too hot and not under control and trying to make an arm tackle because your grip and your oomph, your functional strength is not going to be the same if you don't have your frame and your pads behind and you don't wrap up. Don't have to learn it the hard way, please. And some thoughts on Dolphins Steelers, some updates on who's good, who's not good, who will dress. Obviously, there's decisions for each team to make on who is active for the game or not. But as far as the injury implications, we have a pretty good grasp on where that's at. I want to get into, did the Finns get help across the league? Spoiler alert. No, they didn't really get any. But I want to talk about why I don't really care about it next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure that you guys stick with us. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't just your average picture frame. You could preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. There's no apps to figure out, no headaches setting things up. It's just instant smiles. For a limited time, you could save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames do sell out fast, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions do apply. If you're a Dolphins fan, you've probably experienced this during your game day ventures to Hard Rock Stadium. You drop more than $100 on parking at the stadium. You battle traffic getting in, and then when the game's over, you got to sit in your car for an hour before you're able to move and get out the lots. What if I told you there was a better way? I found a new app that can make your game day experience that much more enjoyable. DIBS is a platform that connects you with verified homeowners and businesses near the stadium who rent out their driveways and lots on game day. We're talking spots as low as $25, up to 80% cheaper than stadium parking, and you get in and out way faster. Every host is verified and rated, so you know exactly what you're getting. DIBS is available for games and events at Hard Rock Stadium and is expanding across the state of Florida. Call DIBS on your spot today. Use promo code LOCKEDON20 for 20% off your first booking. Continuing here on the show, the Dolphins for NFL scores across the league. The Dolphins kind of had a punch list of, hey, it would be helpful if this team lost, that team lost. This team won, this team had an upset. And we didn't really get a lot of it. right? The Ravens are a team you're in the battle with, although they're also chasing the Steelers in the AFC North. They won to move to 7-7. The Texans won and moved to 9-5. They're a wild card team right now. And Chargers, who you lost a head-to-head with, they defeated the Chiefs. So while the Chiefs losing helps, and they've lost Patrick Mahomes for the rest of the season with a confirmed torn left ACL, the Chargers now have 10 wins. That means they could lose out and you would lose the tiebreaker there. The Bills, a team that you have a head-to-head win with and split your season series with, they beat the Patriots, and you weren't mathematically capable of chasing the Patriots down anyway. The Jaguars beat the Jets. The Colts lost. So there's the bone that you got. The Colts lost. And the Chiefs lost. It's the playoff field right now. If the Dolphins win, they are still mathematically alive for a playoff berth, but they would need the Texans to melt down the stretch. They would need a little extra help along the way. The Colts are also still in front of you by at least a game and a half if you win tonight. If you lose tonight, it's over. The conversation's over. But as I said in the first block, this season for me a long time ago became not about whether or not you made the playoffs. And there's a part of me who remembers and has a hard time forgetting how the team responded last year in Week 18. This team has never kicked off a game in 3.5 years under Mike McDaniel, or 3 3/4 years under Mike McDaniel, where they have been mathematically eliminated from the postseason. They've not played a single game from the start of the kick where they weren't in the playoff hunt. Think about it. They made the playoffs the first 2 seasons. And then last year, we're 2-6, came all the way back. It was win and then get help with the Chiefs backups beating the Broncos in Week 18 against the Jets last year. And Anthony Weaver this past week talked about, playing Aaron Rodgers, and I forget exactly what the context was, but talked about the morale of the team because the Jets kept broadcasting the score of the Broncos and Chiefs game last year in Week 18, and it hurt the morale of the guys on the field. While I understand that, if you're going to be moving forward with a coaching staff and you want to have confidence in that coaching staff, and they're going to earn your trust to go into the next chapter with whoever you're hiring, whether there's promises made, whether it's a 1-year trial run, whatever it looks like. It's risky business already to go about your business that way. I want to know what kind of culture you have unequivocally built. This team came back from the brink last year, too. And then the Broncos got up on the Chiefs' backups, and Tyreek Hill pulls himself out of the game 3 plays into the second half and takes his ball and goes home. And the morale of the team impacted. And I recognize there is going to be an emotional reaction to that kind of development, right? And we won't get it in this game because the Dolphins are coming into this game still mathematically eligible for the postseason. It's the longest of long shots. And we'll see, okay, your back's up against the wall. How do you perform? Right? The Vikings went into Sunday Night Football last night, having been mathematically eliminated from the postseason throughout the proceedings earlier in the day. And they beat the Cowboys 34-26. That is a positive mark on the coaching staff that they had the team ready to play, despite earlier in the same day, they were knocked out of the playoff hunt. Now, we're not going to get that against Pittsburgh. But that's my big takeaway here. And as I sat down this morning and I asked myself, what kind of show do I want to do today, knowing full well they're going to play a game? I'm going to post a show early in the afternoon on Monday. They're going to play a game in 7 hours, and maybe they win or maybe they lose. What do I want to talk about that's going to be relevant, that's not going to be a 6-hour shelf life for a program? And for me, it was coming back to what is important about this last 4 weeks. Narrative busting opportunities for Mike McDaniel. Show that you have your team is capable of doing the things that for 3.5 years, everybody has said and your team has not proven that you're capable of doing. staying committed to the run game, being better with certain measures of success, being better with certain efficiency metrics, showcasing positive team culture and continuing to get better as the season unfolds, embracing your new identity, responding instead of reacting to adverse situations like the cold or wet balls or playoff seeding implications or whatever. That's what matters to me. So you get a microcosm of the Dolphins experience and a chance to shake it. Not only with this game, but over the next 4 weeks. Because you didn't get help. The Cardinals could have knocked off the Texans. The Patriots could have not blown a 21-point lead. And the Chiefs could have beat the Chargers. And if that happens, like your playoff conversation is dramatically different. I don't think you have to look any further than what's happening in Cincinnati right now, where there's the bad vibe of all bad vibe teams right now. Joe Burrow hustles and works his tail off to come back on Thanksgiving, and they beat the Ravens, right? 32-14. They smoke them, but then they lose a heartbreaker to the Bills where there's some turnovers from Joe Burrow late in the game. There's a pick six for Christian Benford. Burrow really struggles at home against the Ravens yesterday. Ravens get their lick back in the rematch from 3 weeks ago. And the Bengals now sit at 4-10 with 3 games left to play. And you're going to play the Bengals at home next week. Are you going to be the team that packs up shop, tucks your tail in between your legs, and licks your wounds and feels sorry for yourself? Or are you going to be the team that keeps the gas pedal down because you play with pride, you play with conviction, you play for each other, you as players understand that your coach's job potentially is on the line? Very interested. I'm excited. We talked all off season at the beginning of the season. This year is about clarity. And it took us a little while, but I think we have seen growth from Mike McDaniel. I think we've seen an evolution of Mike McDaniel. I think what has transpired in the last 2 months has been a positive reflection on Mike McDaniel within the locker room that they are building. But it doesn't count unless you finish. Because you reflect on last year, you reflect on 2023 with how you start versus how you finish. You reflect on an 8-3 start in 2022, and I understand you had a rough 3-game road stretch and Tua had another concussion and missed the playoffs game in the last couple of games of the regular season. Like, I get it. But at the end of the day, right, context only takes you so far before it's just the result, and the result across multiple years. And I'm not going to sit here and dog the Dolphins for starting slow and having to dig themselves out of holes, because they were 8-3 in each of their first 2 seasons under Mike McDaniel. Last year and this year, it's been a different experience, and it's been miserable the first 2 months of the season for different reasons. Not winning in the right way is one thing I think Chris Grier was right about. It's a shame they had to learn that lesson the hard way. And now there's going to be changes because of it. And the question is simply how sweeping the changes are. A little bit more on this coming up next here, Locked on Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, when a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump in at any moment, whether that's live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up, or you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets all season long with FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. You're on the Locked On Network, continuing here on Locked On Dolphins. You already live your team every day. As we say, we don't just say we live it here on the Locked On Network, but it's time for you to have the chance to level up and go ad-free. You can join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Dolphins with no interruptions, an all-NFL Discord, and more for just $5 a month or $50 a year. You can find the sign-up link in the show description and join the Everydayer Club here on Locked On Dolphins. And I guess some final thoughts on the game tonight. Because you can look at it from two different lenses, and it being historical versus kind of relevant to this year's teams. Historical and evidence across multiple coaches says the Dolphins in these situations historically do not perform well. Does going up and practicing in the snow on Saturday night move the needle in that regard? Does it make that big of a difference? Oh, it's pretty interesting to see the Dolphins up there and throwing snowballs at guys, and the guys are all doing high knees and running around, and they practiced in the snow. They practiced in worse conditions than what they will play in tonight. I think that helps. Does it change things? Because if you look at the teams and the matchup and play it neutrally, right, like FanDuel has this as a 3-point spread for Pittsburgh as a home team, that means that they think this is a pick'em game. But Miami has a lot of matchups that I think lend themselves quite well to having success in this game. And we've talked about the Steelers and their defensive effort and 217 and 249 rushing yards allowed the last 2 weeks. They had been playing relatively well before that. Chicago only ran for 299. Cincinnati ran for 105. Chicago ran for 99. Did I say 299? They had 229 passing. So Chicago ran for 99. Cincinnati ran for 105. The Chargers ran for 115. Colts 55, but had the Steelers defense had 6 takeaways in that game. Packers ran for 94. Browns ran for 65. Vikings ran for 7. Jets week 1 ran for 182. So it's like, where on the spectrum is it? The Dolphins executing the way that you are would have you believe that you can have success on the ground. Pittsburgh's defense has at times feasted with takeaways. They had 5 takeaways in a win over the Patriots. They had 6 takeaways in a win over the Colts. Both of those were 7-point wins with 11 combined turnovers. The last 4 weeks, they're 2-2, but they have 7 takeaways in the last 4 games. You cannot give the ball away. I'm going to lead and err on the side of this year's teams. It's only relevant if you allow it to be. I think the Dolphins win tonight. And as I've sat here and stewed on it and thought about who's playing and who's not, how you expect the game to go, I don't expect a lot of points. You could tell me that it was 23-16. You could tell me that it was 16-10. You could tell me it was 17-16. You could tell me it was 21-20. I don't think the Dolphins are going to score 3 touchdowns tonight, and I hope I'm wrong. But I think they can move the ball enough, and I think special teams is something that is a little bit under the spotlight in a negative way for the Dolphins this season. But like Pittsburgh's a team that historically has like had takeaways, played good defense. They won on special teams. They protect themselves in the margins. Like the onside kick against the Saints, and then they gave up a touchdown against the Jets. So it's like special teams is rightfully under the microscope. But the Dolphins' special teams unit has been dramatically better with Craig Aukerman than what it was with Danny Crossman. So I take all that. I put it in. I look at the Dolphins' defense themselves the last 4 games has 10 takeaways in the last 4 games. Pittsburgh has 7. The Dolphins' last 3 games have only turned the ball over 1 time. It's been better. I think it continues. Give me the Dolphins in this one. And I'll go 23 to... I'll go 23-17. Nail biter. 1-score game. We'll find out tonight. Kyle Krabs, keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. We'll be back immediately after the game, live on the YouTube channel. We'll go in your podcast feed after the fact with the post-game squad show, and then I will react to the game myself tomorrow for a post-game debrief, whether that is a group therapy session because we've been eliminated from the playoffs, or we got back to 500 and it's another Victory Monday, which would be a Victory Tuesday, which I would like a lot. Keep it locked in here on Locked On Dolphins. I'll talk to you all again enjoy the game tonight. And as always, go Fins.